Hello, my name is Zafer. Today I will present you about crack propagation life prediction of a single lab shear joint, a linear elastic fracture mechanics based machine learning approach. My advisors are Professor Dr. Paşa Yayla and Professor Dr. Alev Taşkın. I will start my presentation by explaining aircraft fatigue failure incidents at the beginning. Then I will explain cost of fatigue with the numbers. Later, I will present my methodology. After that, I will explain used load spectra. Then I will move to fastener load calculation, crack growth scenario, machine learning model, random forest regression, K nearest neighbor regression. Finally, I will finish my presentation with conclusion. We had many incidents in aerospace industry related to fatigue failure. One of the failure called comet crash happened in 1954 due to fatigue at notch region. Then in 1965, Little Balton air crash happened because of fatigue crack at bolts of the elevator. In 1977, due to fatigue crack at the horizontal stabilizer, Dan air crash happened. In 1988, one of the famous accidents called Aloha Airlines crash happened, which explained in most of the fatigue textbooks also. In 2002 and 2005, inadequate maintenance led to formation of fatigue cracks. Then we had China Airlines crash, Chalks Oceans Airway crash. In 1982, cost of fatigue fracture in USA economy was calculated as $120 million, which corresponds to 4% of gross national product. Our methodology in this study is calculating crack growth life of a single lab shear joint under different load spectra and the use of this data to train machine learning model in order to predict crack growth life for different kind of operational loads. Pulse stop load spectra, which corresponds to fighter aircraft loading standard for fatigue, is used in this study. Pulse stop was developed in 1975 based on the flight data of Lockheed F-104, Fiat G91, Northrop NF-5A, Dassault Mirage 3S, utilized in German Air Force, Royal Netherlands Air Force, and Swiss Air Force. Pulse stop spectra is representative for 200 flights or 1 year of typical usage. So, when we run an analysis using pulse stop, we will get 200 flights of damage for one pass of the spectra. Pulse stop is consist of 32 load levels. Level 0 is set to 7.52. One who would like to generate a tailor-made load spectra using pulse stop should scale the G envelope of the aircraft to 32 levels of pulse stop. In this study, we have developed 90 unique load spectra ranging between -3G to 9G. The analyzed joint in this study consists of 3 steel fasteners. Thickness of the strap is 3 mm and the material of the strap is 7050 T7451 aluminum. Loads of the fasteners are calculated using compatibility. It's assumed that the displacement between two opposite points on each plate on the fastener center line is equal to the deflection. If we apply P load to bottom plate from the left hand, fastener will take load V1 and transmit it to upper plate, which marked as A in the slide, and the bottom plate marked as B in the slide will take P minus V1. If we move to the fastener 2, it will take the load V2 and transmit it to the upper plate, marked as C. The transferred load to the plate C is V1 plus V2. The bottom plate will take P minus V1 minus V2. Then the fastener 3 will take the load V3 and transmit it to the upper plate as V1 plus V2 plus V3. Therefore, all of the load will be transferred to the upper plate. Fastener flexibilities are calculated using Hood fastener flexibility formula. With the aid of Hood method, flexibilities in transverse direction were obtained. However, flexibilities in axial direction calculated using axial deflection formula of the bars, which is FL over EA. According to the hand calculations, fastener 1 will take approximately 35% of applied load, fastener 2 or middle fastener will take approximately 30% of total load, finally fastener 3 will take approximately 35% of the total load. When we compare the finite element calculation results of fastener loads with analytical approach, as you can see in the graph on the right hand side, we found that the results of the finite element and analytical calculations are very close to each other. The next step is with the determination of the crack growth path. It's assumed that the crack will propagate perpendicular to the first principal stress tensor direction from near to the most critical hole in terms of stress. Crack propagation rate is depends to ratios of different stress components such as bearing stress, through stress, and bending stress. Therefore, different stress components were calculated. In this slide, we can see an example for 4,800 newtons of loading condition. Our gross stress will be 50 megapascal, which is 4,800 newtons over width and thickness as 32 multiplied by the 3. And remembering the fastener load calculation in slide 12, first and third fastener are responsible of approximately 35% of total loads individually, which corresponds to 1,693 newtons for first and third fastener. Then we will get approximately 89 megapascal of bearing stress at the hole. Our true stress is average of the stress of the top and bottom surfaces of the plate. Therefore, it will be 50 megapascal. Remembering, secondary bending is not taken into account in this study. Our bending stress will be stress at the top surface minus stress at the bottom surface divided by 2. Therefore, it will be 0 megapascal. Based on the stress values in previous slide, crack growth life for the plate is approximately 32,000 flight hours for a given load. Up until now, we calculated crack growth lives for 90 unique load spectra. For the machine learning model, we utilized statistical features of our load spectra, such as maximum value, minimum value, mean value, and standard deviation. Also calculated crack growth lives and rainflow histogram of the spectra to train our models. Our objective is to predict crack growth life under unknown service loads. Firstly, we utilized random forest regression model to make prediction. It basically works using decision tree algorithm. For example, if a variable less than a value, it goes to a branch, then the algorithm make another test over a variable. If yes, it goes to another branch, and if no, it goes to another branch. The algorithm creates many of these kind of decision trees and makes estimation based on all of the decision tree results. In our case, we fed our data to predict crack growth life. On the right hand side, you can see the plot consists of actual life and predicted life. As you can see in the graph, actual and predicted lives are very close to each other. Our root mean square error for this model is 333 flight hours. We also utilize k-nearest neighbor regression model to predict correct growth life under same inputs of random forest regression model. Basically, if we would like to make a prediction using k-nearest neighbor method, the algorithm searches for closest point in our input data and using that reference closest point to make prediction. If you increase the number of neighbors, for example, if you choose 2 neighbors, it will search for 2 closest points around requested input and calculates the average of the closest 2 neighbor points. On the right hand side, you can see the plot consists of actual life and predicted life. As you can see in the graph, actual and predicted lives are quite close to each other. Error increases when the life gets higher, as highlighted with red. Root mean square error for this model is 3,420 flight hours. Finally, conclusions of our study can be listed as following. A negligible error found between finite element result and analytical calculations in terms of fastener loads. This indicates that our finite element model is accurate. Root mean squared error for random forest regression model is 333 flight hours. Also, root mean square error of k-nearest neighbor regression model is 3,420 flight hours. Compared to the life of F-16 aircraft, which corresponds to 8,000 flight hours or 30 years of life, the error of random forest regression is quite acceptable, which is 4% of total life of F-16 aircraft. However, error of k-nearest neighbor regression is not acceptable, which is 42% of total life of F-16 aircraft. Thank you for listening.